Plan is to finish Sif Beis and open up Sif Gimel. I say open up Sif Gimel because the Iker, I mean, it's not nice to call it Iker, but the Iker of Sif Gimel is the contrast of Gimel to Hey, which is figuring out how Hefsek Kedera and Nesina Lechatchila works. And if we didn't see Hey in its entirety, talking about Gimel in that fashion is silly. So therefore, we'll just do the beginning of Gimel, in Meretz Hashem, after we finish Beis. So the beginning of Gimel is the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish is a blach, and how everything works. So we'll get there in a few moments. But let's begin. We finished discussing in Sif Beis, we're in the middle of the Tanayim, Daita Lahachzir, just a few Daita Lahachzir cases, what is called Daita Lahachzir. So we spoke out the famous machlekes, whether you need positive das or not. I'm hoping by now everyone saw the Rav Kiva Eger inside on Sif Beis. Yeah, the whole long Rav Kiva Eger. Gewaltig. Wonderful. As long as you saw the Rav Kiva Eger. That's a machlekes of Kiva Eger and Aviezi. We're not going to talk about that. Now, happens to be, this is one of those things which you could spend a lot of time and have, shir kolam on, which is this, as many just stop to point out how many different areas of halacha. Because what happens if you are the shlamazel of the year? I don't really know how the case happens, but Shlomo Zalman says that what if you dropped your pot? Now, I just don't know how it happens because I don't know where the food is right now. But it says Shlomo Zalman, what if you drop the pot of cholent on the floor? Is that called, meaning you had das, you had everything, you're like all excited, you got your 5 Tanayim and you're carrying the cholent, and you drop it. Again, unclear how you saved the cholent afterwards. But says Shlomo Zalman in Shmir Shabbos, Ha'ara 79, in the Parakam Bishul, Parak Aleph, is this called das? So he wants to say, now, why is this very relevant? We have this in Mamish every area of halacha. Is it called das? It's called das. If your towels falls off during davening, so I think it will be karka, but if it's karka with das, you already spoke about that, you might have. Yeah. So the question is it das? Oh, so what's it said that's not das? Is many gedalim l'mashal akoy the chotshani. From Mr. Krell says dinoi ke'ein daita lachziroi, and he says raya from the Bir Halacha, from Rav Kiva Eger, and they all want to bring rayas from within Rav Kiva Eger. That's why I asked if they learned it. But there's many cases. L'mashal, you're wearing your towels and your towels falls off. You have to make a new bracha. That's one case. Another case is you walk by a mezuzah and the mezuzah falls down. You have to make a new bracha. And in each of ththese cases, the Rizzi is telling to all these areas of what's called das, what's called hesach das, etc. Just derech agav, in the case of the talis, I think we all know the Mishnah Brura, Paskins, what happens if your talis falls off? No one else? No one's talis have ever fallen off? If you're doing Shon Esrei, but pick it up and you make a bracha. Even if you don't want it to fall off, it doesn't make a difference. The Shura says that if it's a mixas olav, if it's a little bit on you, you save the day, then you keep the dream alive. But says, no, I'll tell you what, that's coming off okay. Says Mishnah Brura, if it falls off, then you pick it up and make a bracha. Now, if you're in the middle of a place you can't make a bracha, that's a different shmuz. But you have to make a new bracha. Sorry? No, you what do you mean? You didn't want it to come off. Oh, that's what you meant. Yeah, Vadim. Okay, very good. Yes, if you took it off, it's a different story. I'm saying the case is it fell off. You obviously don't want it to fall off. If it falls off, then you make a new bracha. That's what Mishmura Paskins. So first of all, just stam derech agav. Mishmura says if it's aydin olav, people make a mistake. People think if they catch it before it hits the ground, that's called aydin olav. It's a tayis. The whole vart is that you're still wearing it. Stam, that's derech agav. But Shlomo Zalman Auerbach argues with the Mishnah Brura. This is all kol zeh nechlal. Shlomo Zalman says that absolutely not. You don't have to make a new bracha when your talis falls off. The question is why Shlomo Zalman holds that. Is it because he has a fundamental difference in the world of das? Lamashal over here he says when your cholent falls, it's not a problem. He says vade lav klamu v'shar lachzira. Is it all nechlal? Similarly, if you walk by, you come home today and you find the mezuzah on the floor, what do? You pick it up, you give it a kiss. Now, do you make a new bracha when you put it back on? Same shayla, is they called hesach hadas, therefore requires a new bracha. And there's chalukim. What? No, food will be in the pot, but another food's still in the flame. Another food is still in the flame. In fact, the food's in the pot. No, but das means you need to have cognizant das. The fact that some food is in the pot is not making me have das. Yeah. Okay, Shayla is all these things connected. I'm just opening it up, and if you want to have fun, you could go trace all their some zalman and see if they add up. Maybe there's other svaras. In the case of talis, there's a svara that you're wearing your tzitzis. So maybe it's still called that you're being Isaac in the mitzvah, even though you're not wearing your talis. Maybe not. Well, what about mezuzah? Each mezuzah is its own mitzvah. But the Arab Shitas Rishainim, that your whole bias is one. Stam, it's just something to open up our minds, whether everything is connected. Circling back around to us, Lamaiser Sham Zalman is Makels. If it would happen, then fine. But now here comes the next case. What if you took off the wrong pot? So I told the Elam I was handling with the Talmud of the Feinstein Mishpach over Shabbos. So he was discussing this case, and he said over a Maisa, either from, I think it was Rav David, that what happens in the case goes that instead of, you're an old school yid, you don't use a crack pot, you have a good old fashioned metal pot on your blech. One of the pots is your soup, and one of the pots is your cholent, or one of the pots is your cholent, and one of the pots is your yapchik. I think it's a more normal case. Whatever the case is, and you go Friday night, you want to serve your soup, or you want to serve your yapchik, and you take it off and you put it on the counter and you open it up and you let it cool and you come back and you realize, oh shoot, you took off the cholent. So you took it off b'tois. Are you now allowed to go put it down? And again, you have to creep into the world of das and how does this work? Is this called parav? Is this called negative? V'chulu. But first of all, he quoted from Rav David that it's only Gedolim can say these things like, what's the chalik? So have the cholent tonight and have the soup tomorrow. No, what's about taiva? Make such a big deal? No, you need to have food on Shabbos. So what's the difference? Okay, listen, I'm not arguing. I'm definitely not arguing. That's what he said. Lamaisa, are you allowed to put it back? So there are, again, this is a way to machlekes. There are gedolim on both sides of the coin. They quote Chaim Kanievsky in a Sefer Amkat Shvi. Says Lamaisa, you took it down, so it's aser. The Shvas Yitzchak Rav Darzi quotes Rav Elyashiv, aser lahachzir. The B'tzal Chachman says similarly. On the other side of the coin, in the article book over here that we're going to quote in a few moments, we found some Meir Tekezachen. He's Mekel, Shmir Shabbos is Mekel. So l'chayr there is a makkah to Mekel, and again, how it works. I'm not really explaining the lumdus of it because we're getting into the fine nuances, how we understand das. So let's move on. That's the next case. The third case is going to be, what if the fire goes out? Mamish, a very similar case. Ma dinoi, the fire goes out. Can you now go take your cholent and move it somewhere else? And this is a fairly common case. Are you allowed to go and move your cholent to another flame? Is it called lack of das? So again, Ramesha over here is Mekel. Ramesha in a nostalgic tshuva, quoted in Torah V'Hayra, which we'll see soon. I'm still not sure what's going on. But he says, Kimatzui etzleinu b'yimei hakayitz b'bungalow colony. It's matzui that what happens, the power goes out. And he says, if it's still hot, then, and it's loy nitzanu legamri, then you let to bring it to your neighbor if you have an Erev, v'chulu. And if not, he actually says, when we learn Haitzah one day, this is a very big tshuva. I mean, it might even be Kamada Mishnah Brura, but Ramesha says, if not, you could bring it with a guy even though there's no Erev, he's willing to be Mekel. Is that because he's being Mekel on a fuss of a Daraisa for hot food? Is he being Mekel that it's a bungalow colony and it's only a Darabanan they could carry? This will be hack when we get there, Mir Tashem. So Ramesha is Mekel in multiple tshuvais. Lamaisa, there are those Shmir Shabbos, or Helig Shmir Shabbos, in Parak Aleph, in Sivcha Zayin. He's very, very not forgiving. If I could just read you, he eventually gives in, but like he's really not happy in Sivcha Zayin. And again, I'm not even trying to explain the lumdis, what these nuances of machlekism are. But over here he says, Kasa Allahava, the flame goes out. Yasem Esekadera. Uba Eichel Mavusha called Tarkov Dain Cham Mixas. So what should you do? Put it samach lelava cheres. Don't put it on another flame, put it nearby. As we saw in the previous if. Oyel Gabe Kedera Cheres, meaning he wants you to utilize Nisina Lechatchila Dikaterim. Shish Matashal Yal Gabe Eish. Mutter Lasli Gamim Eichel Yagel Chem Shat Sledes by. Ein Like Kedera Cheres Gabe. Let's say you can't do that. Rabbi, you want to put my cholent on top of my soup, a soup on top of the thing? It's not happening. So what now? Then he says, Yasam ala ish. Davar she'imait is a chayim alava. Put something in the flame that's going to lower the heat. V'nikar she'nais yikragim zachol, meaning it's what we're going to eventually call a hefsek kedera, an overturned pan with some space that's nikar. It's not a normal way of cooking. Go shemiyach leish lachat matechas otav aviyah fucha v'nechas deirlel ayin lel. So that's level 2. Level 3, ubidi eved gam mutter lasvik der yishir zaleisha v'chusa. Oy af lachzes eish, and to put it on top. So he is eventually makel, but you see, he takes a few steps to get there. He's really not happy. Yes. Yeah. No. So no, again. In the Ha'ara, he's explaining you the lumdis. And Avada, that is the lumdis. And Seif Kal Seif, he is makel, as we saw on top. He says, Bidi Avid, if you need it, you could be makel. And now in that Ha'ara, he's telling you what's the lumdis. The lumdis is the tachlis, you put it there, and therefore it's called daitoi to continue. But you just see, Ramesha Lamashal wasn't really concerned. He said, as long as it's hot, medav gain weiter. I'm sorry? We could say whatever we want. I understand what you're suggesting. I'm not arguing with you, but the Gedalei Paiskim seemingly want to say that maybe it's called a siluk. The same landis as karka. No, the same landis as karka. Okay. I'm not weighing in. I mean, this is the machlekes. I'm asking. What should I tell you? No, I mean you're weighing in on the machlekes between Rishon Zalman and Ramesha. Ramesha's makel. Rishon Zalman it clearly feels that it's more of a mice of a siluk. Therefore, you shouldn't do it. No, because again, in the worst level of das, it's called a siluk. In the level of a siluk, it's not called sasel, it's called a karka. That's the lowest level of das. So no, that again, that goes back when we spoke about it. It could be that there's a level that you put all a karka, it's called a maisa siluk, that you're putting it away. And therefore, if the flame going out is something that is negative, it's idas, then it might be worse. That's what it sounds like the Paiskim here are learning. But again, no, what's the problem here? Again, what's the lumdis that when you put on a karka, it's over? There were different ways of learning it, but we saw it was a way to machlekes. But the machmirim held that the vard is that you're doing a maisa of I'm done with this pot. And now at that point, we saw so much so that someone even telling even if it's still either be yada, you can't put it back. Why not? Because the vard is that you finished it. So if there is such a lumdis that exists, that is a lumdis that's in. There's something called a cancel button. You press the cancel button, you have nowhere to go anymore. So they want to learn that when you take a pot and the flame goes out, there's nothing to do. And therefore, it's daita shaloi lachzir. Because then that's in a place that's still holding it. That would be more like a zafsel. Yes, that's the lumdis. Correct. That is the chiddush. The chiddush is because it's a marid. That's some learning. It's a marid chiddush. We quoted last week. Chaim Kanievsky says the same thing. So here I'll read you the lashon from that they quote from Rav Chaim again. Obviously, why do we have to go down this route? I don't know what the question is. I didn't say you have to be machmer. I'm quoting you both sides of the coin. Ramesha is mekel in Achanami, but they quote Rav Chaim that the way that he says it is kshenis cheba when the flame goes out. Bevadei aser lahavir davi kinoisin lechatchila b'Shabbos. Game over and you're starting again. Aval kinoisin b'Shabbos adashia, and then he goes into the case of a timer of a chulu. Now there's a middle level. One second, I'm sorry. There's a middle level which is which we quoted last time is which this case never happens for us. If the flame is still hot, the kira is still hot. We have the opposite. We have that the cholent is hot, but the flame is off. And that's what we quoted last time, that the Tzal Chachma want us to be machmir. They quote, what about the other way around? But again, I don't. Yeah. I've absolutely no clue. I've absolutely no clue how it happens. I'm not sure. I don't know. Someone who's drunk. I'm not sure. I mean, I'll tell you, the way they quote Rav Yashiv is a tshuva about this in Kovetz Tshuvos, however you want to take that. Rav Darzi writes similarly, and I'll just quote the way he says it. And grad, there are those who this is like the way that they paskin. So listen to the way he says it. You take the pot after the flame goes out. You bring it to another flame. You have to ask one question. Not if your cholent is out. This is like the Absal Chachma. Question is the oven hot? Is the original flame hot? Yish din kira. Shabar shalakachas mekira to nichal gabi kira cheres. Avalim fog hachmimut. Is that a word, Rabbi Davis? Yes. Awesome. You could use it as a word. P gimel hug or fug. I said it right the first time. Yishladin. Okay. I don't know. No, that's lahafig. Not every word you can just take out the shirish and like make it into a verb. I mean, it doesn't work that way. This is, I still remember there was a mice in Eretz Yisrael, a neighbor of mine that the parrot went out and he wanted to know, can he take his chalent and put on the neighbor's platos? He went and he knocked on the door on the Rav, and the Rav said, absolutely not, chas v'shalom. And he said, why not? He said, because he asked him one question. It was on a plateau or a chalent, whatever, crackpot matzav, is the heating element hot? And the answer was, of course, it's not hot. And therefore he said, yeah, that's it, it's finished. It's called the Nisin L'Chatzchila. And that's Rabbi Yashiv's psak. And, okay, Ramesha is Mekel, so I definitely believe there would be what to be Mekel. And I'll tell you, even the Machmi, sorry? What? What do you mean, what was the Machmi? Did he not end up doing it? I don't think he ended up doing it. Krado, it was, yeah, I don't think he ended up doing it. I think we're talking about different mices, but yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's what Yashiv says. That is what he says. Hagufa. I'm not arguing with you. He again, if I play devil's advocate, he wants to say, he's saying very good butler shir yishayna, but it's more bottle than your own lack of das. When I take up the crack, but I put it down, I don't plan on putting it back on. Correct. This is machlik salam. I'm not weighing in. I completely agree with what you were saying. But again, there is a middle level, which is if the food is still hot, there are those who want to say that's going to be enough. So stam, in the level of yeah. Okay. If food is cold, then you're out manashach. Correct. Next, you forgot that we didn't. We spoke about if you forgot to plug in the crack pot. Did we speak about that case? No. We didn't speak about that case. Okay. So we learned Bishlag quickly at the end of something, right? Slowly, we did like a match. Mayerdik. Gewaldig. Okay. So that is a very common case, which is that you put all your food and you forget to plug it in. That's one case which we handle in the world of Bishal Akum extensively. Now, there's another case is that you heat it. Apparently, people do this. Apparently, based on the Svarim, and I stopped commenting on what people do because I realized we're all crazy. Is they heat up all their food in their oven erev Shabbos, and then they don't want to leave their oven on, so they want to leave their plat on. Now, why the plat is better than the oven? Maybe la halacha this cheshbainis. I don't know. Definitely are cheshbainis. So they heat up all the food. Now they want to move it to the plata. Mayerdik. So they heat up all the food, they move it to the plata, everything's great, and they go to shul, then they realize they forgot to plug in the plata. So what do we do now? It's Shabbos now. It's a 93 minutes. Get out of every sheet over here. But the food is still hot. Can I go now and move my food somewhere else? Meaning, no. We're not saying you got to plug it in. I want to know, not into the oven. You can't put it in the oven anyways. I want to know that, wait, I have food hot. Everything was set up. Rishon Zalman in multiple tshuvas, Mara Shabbos, that's Rav Yadler, right? Rav Yadler in Chelik Aleph, this is probably where it became famous. He says as follows. What? What is it? This is very good. This is the reverse. That was the case. Someone came down to Arzei 57. They just say he lives in Arzay, but he really it's Shmuel Navi officially, right by Dubin over there, next door. Very good. Okay, I'm getting nostalgic. So now, so the case was the guy went and then they came and knocked on the Rav's door. Yesh Ladin. Yesh Ladin. Zogt Rav Yadler Nirlin Yistaiti Shetoiv Asa. He did good. He did good. Va'av shebe'erev Shabbos kodim shenichal gabi apach nichal gabi karka. He says, what do you mean? You had a sea look. Makom makom mutter kim shekol. Listen to this lumdus. This is it's the beard has to be like belly button level. Kivan shekola isek hurak lahamid al ish. What were you doing? What was the whole ma'isa you were trying to do? You were trying to heat up the food. V'chol hatipulim himachana v'loy siluk. Vein ze kemamed al gabi karka she'yedei shemiser meish v'loy kishehakol nase ach v'rak b'matar l'terach hamad al ish. Everything you're doing is to get on the ish, and therefore he's saying it's perfectly fine. Yishlirais samad b'tois al bak hamad al ish v'adet fei mikisa v'sav shmesh meish, and he says it's gevaldik, and that is what you should have done. The only other, and apparently, so I believe this is a tshuva from Rosh Zalman, because they say the same thing exists in Minchas Shleima. You can look it up, Chelik Beis, which Chelik Beis Ayin Sham. Rabbi Davis, leave that one to you. Siman Lamed Daled Ois Yud Zayin. I did not look it up. You're right. I should have looked it up. Maskim. I did not look it up. Beis Lamed Daled Yud Zayin. Beis Lamed Daled Yud Zayin. No, it definitely is better. It's definitely better. It's a totally different lumdus, as you were trying to explain to you. When the flame goes out, it's a different lumdus. This is a lumdus that you're trying to put it in. No? I don't know which part you're not agreeing with. Yeah. So that's better than yes. Yes. Much better. No, not penalized. Where is your, it's a machlekes in das. One is, my das is to do everything, and there was a mistake. So the shayla and the other one is, my das was there, but it was turned off. It's total. No, it wasn't your mistake. It's not that I'm doing everything. It's different lumdis. Okay, we could argue in lumdis, but not for now. They quote others that, no, we're talking about fully cooked, and all Tanai Chazarah are satisfied. Stam, if you want another marmakim, in the Sefer Zera Shmuel, they come from Berkowitz, Mamish, the same thing. He says, Mikra Shenich Gdera Sachas Ben Boyd Yoim Al Gabi Plata, B'Shabbos Nimsa Plata Loy Hoya Muf'al, was not on. Shepashit Shezen Nechshav Ke'oida B'Yadai, as and he quotes Ramesha Shalfiyah Chazinesh, to be Achlan Yichaplata Chavero, if you Mishtabur, it's going to be Mutter, and Lamaisa one can be Mekel. Okay, let's move on. Pino Lemecham Lemecham. We mentioned last week the terrible stira. We mentioned this last week. What? Yeah. Power going back on, that's going to be a different shayla about a b'diavad. When we handle b'diavad, we're going to have to learn. So that's going to be a shayla of a guy doing a ma'aseh for you, a ma'aseh Shabbos time. A siluk of a yid. I mean, no, sometimes Mekel anyways, but he allows you to do it. He feels that you need a higher level tzarech. I don't know. I mean, there are Mekel, most are Mekel in such a case, but you want to know within that shita that I don't have a raya to offhand. Timer is a whole sugya that we have to eventually handle. It's a whole sugya how it works, and Amir Tashem, we have to get there. Okay, now we mentioned the glaring, what's going on over here. I don't really have anything more to add. The only thing that I'm going to add is, no, we spoke. I meant to end it last week. End of shir. I mentioned that the Shartzian is just fascinating. Shartzian says, I'm not going to even mention it because it's a Bayit Leivshta in the Gemara, and it's a Machlekes Rishayim, and therefore it's Pasha, it can be Semech Lahakil. Ramesha and Beis Samachtes says, if you're going to put it into another plot, Avada to Bayit Gemara, and the Ramaz Machmer, Ein Magen Avram, end of Tshuva. So you have two total opposite ends of the coin, and what to do with such a Machlekes is incredible. The Kabbalah case is adding water to your challah. Or when we have to add up everything together in the world of Chazarah, so there's two ways you're going to do it. Well, in any way you're going to do it, it's going to be Pinal Mechel Mecham, because you're transferring the water to another thing. Oh, so that's going to still be a machlekes, even if you bring your crackpot to the urn. What is the status of your crack right now? You're saying it is a kli rishon shel Eish. Oh, so that would on the Eish Mamish. That would be the best. Then you would get out of the shell. If you move your crock pot in the heating element, shell, if you let to move that, huge machlekes. It's pashi, you can move it, but a massive machlekes are those who are machmir. And then there's an urn, so you want to put them right next to each other, and you just go straight in. That would be a case. Because they are good. So just very, very, very quickly, the machlekes in the Gemara, a pinal mecham, the pashtus is it going into a kli sheni? That's going to be the machlekes rishayim. If it's going straight to kli rishayim, many would be more makel. Okay, I know the mishabura is makel, so I mean, there's definitely what to be makel on. The one thing I did find is the Be'er Moshe is like a Be'er Moshe. David Sina, very good. Lived in what years? What years did he live? Late 1800s. He lived a long life, Baruch Hashem. So, I found fascinating the way he writes his tshuva. He says, Nishalti, I was asked, Sonu Darba Aliyah, Im Sharlu B'Shabbos Aris Mayim Rotzchem Mikli Amunach Aleish. He wants to put water into a kli. It's a Chavera Darbi Due to to bring it to a lower floor, B'Toich Kli Shalai. Who allows their kli and then to put the kli Aleish Shatzel Ba'aleh. He wants to move it and put it on the flame. The classical Pinot Nechel Nechem. V'Amar Li Shkei Nog Heter B'Davar Zeh Kamashad. That was the Shoyel said to the Heilige Debatina Rav. And the Debatina Rav says, Vishal L'Kama Tamid Chachamim U'Miksasim Yeshivu Leheter. Interesting. Aval gam lo yacham yeshiv li le'isr. Hashavti, I said, the aser gomer hu lasas came. Mayerdik. And he says, by the Gemara, it's machlekes rishayim, and he says, shal seifrim is safik la'achal. But over here we have to be machmir, says the Ran. It's very close to Deraisa. And he says the Magen Avram says it's called Meishav Lechatchila, Balashir Kamaisa. In Kebdi Denshkli Sheni right to Elijah Akira Bevade Aser Alpiyadin. That's all I have to say. I just thought that was a fascinating exchange. Ramesh is also Machmir. Shartzin, as we quoted, is Mekel. And Risham Zalman Ishbir Sharetz Parak Aleph Ha'ara Memtes quotes the Shartzian, Machriya L'Hatir, and he leaves it at that. Which, yeah, okay. Weiter. We're running out of time. What do you mean? The opposite. He forgives himself in the Shartzian for wasting your time and your headspace, even clearing the Shail of Pinol Mecham, because Alkain, the opposite. That's why I find that this glaring machlekes is so tremendous, and I still don't have clarity what's going on. No, well, the only thing that comes out of this whole conversation is that it's not lechatchila, meaning there is no lechatchila. The whole case is always b'diavad. Your challah is burning. You want to know, can you add water to it? And you want to put it on your thing? It's not I can't. I find it difficult to call something lechatchila. There, Moshe says it's aser. I don't know. That's what I would say. It's not all you can say. As a Rav one time when I asked the Rav about opening cans on Shabbos, Rav that lives in Lakewood, a famous Rav, and he said to me, to get up and say it's aser is impossible. To get up and say it's mutter is impossible. Rav Shamzam said it's mutter. Rav Yash said it's aser. Meichatesi. How can you get up and say either one? Lamais, it's a way to machlekes. That's the way it is. He said about opening cans on Shabbos. Yeah, mamish. Yeah, that was yeah. But no. But again. This is in a heintig machlekes in a precise case. But in Achnami, in this case, I think is a way example. Correct, and that's a that's that's why you hear the shit that we're saying right now. 100%. That's you just understood exactly how we're giving the share, and that's why I don't believe I'm quoting this Rav that I don't think he's Rav Daniel Neustadt from Lakewood, originally from Chicago. He wrote a bunch of wonderful svarim and books in Detroit. Thank you. It's a different place than Chicago. But yeah, in Achanami, I agree with every word you're saying, and that's why yes, it's a weighted machlekes versus Rosh Zalman and Ramesha. So what do you do? Usually in weighted machlekes, we try. Usually that's the way it goes, and you want to know what level b'diavad can be makel. A lot of times, that's where really the shikol comes in. Is it what level of shas l'chak? How much is it? Is it mamish just a Rishon Zalman against the ganze belt? And that's what we're trying to give. But yes, that now you understand exactly what we are doing here. And with that, we move on. Mavushal called tzarka, and that's why I told you there's no reason for me to be giving shir. I told you this already. I told this to you. I'm only doing this because Rabbi Davis told me to. Mavushal called tzarka stam. Just to point out, it obviously means it has to be fully cooked. It doesn't mean meichel ben drasai. That's the Raman Sif Beis. If you don't know that, certainly resign. And yeah, I have nothing else to say. What is called tzarka? All of its needs. So good. So the question they handle, okay. I'll answer this question through the bones. Well, what's the ma'isa with the bones in the child? Called Ramesha? No. I know what it says in text. Calm down with the text. We'll get to the text. What's the hack that someone called someone? No one knows. Rav Aaron, Ramesha, Shem Zalman put on his hat, stood up. No. Okay, weiter. Okay, forget the hack. We'll save the hack for 2 minutes. We're gonna need more hack. No. The chuvas. We're getting there. Atzamot, bones in the chalent. So your bones in the chalent have. When you see what we say about bones, you'll understand sweet potatoes. Okay, the bones in the chalent, so they have to be fully cooked. Now, what type of bones are we talking about? So it sounds like we're talking about, I'll call you from Evan Yisrael. Who's whom? Dayan Fisher. Lived in Shalayim Yerakodesh. A real Yerushalmi, as they say. The Yerushalmi. So we're going to get there. We're going to get to the hack. We're going to get to Ramesha. 1 second. Let's just get there slowly. So Dayan Fisher says as follows, and listen to his words. Quoted again by Rav Yadler, a fellow Yerushalmi Nick. The Mutter who's Rav Yadler is Yid who lives in Arze that has many of the famous chuvas from Rosh Zalman. He was the one that he wrote to and wrote back and forth, and he handles mamish down to the Mutter lahachzer is like al gabi isha gufa ktuma. Ve'ein lochush lat samais, in parentheses, what type of bones? Shel bakar oy shel oif. Both chicken bones and bakar, what? Cattle. What are the beef bones? What are those? The marrow bones, l'chayra. Va'av shebedaitoi la'achlan ulila'asan. Your das is to eat them. What that means? Sounds like eat the bone. Yes, we don't necessarily understand this. He says you don't have to. V'hoisev sheme'olam lo'shamanu shachash l'zeh. Shalmi Yid says, well, what are you cheshish for? Avada, you're allowed to do Chazarah. And I right now, the bone's not, right now, the bone maybe is not fully cooked. I don't understand what you're talking about. He says it's perfectly mutter. Sham Zalman, on the other hand, comes along, probably what maybe we would have thought, in Parak Aleph, in Sif Chaf, and in Sif Mem Aleph. And he says, it has to be fully cooked. And if you have a fully cooked dish that has atzamo shel oif, what do you mean? Yeah, says Rosham Zalman. Says Rosham Zalman. Tavshel mavushik al tarkish himtzaba it's because the tavshel is fully cooked. in the tafshil, I have a bone that's not fully cooked. And says Rishon Zalman, Asher meiroiv bishlein misurachachos yiruis lechila, yesh lahakbid shegam heim kevar tiena mevushalos kol tzarkon ruis lechila. Says Rishon Zalman, which is what you're quoting me from the Ramah, is every item in the dish has to be fully cooked that you could eat it. And that's what Rishon Zalman writes. Ramesh Shernbach and Chuvas on Hagais writes the same thing. Chash Isser Tayr de Shabbos. He says, but to be moicha, inani royal tzarich. You don't have to scream at them, but he says we got to be careful that regilim lachlat samos miskavi nami mikara alayu bas bevadi royal lesser. He says those who eat the bones, that's what your mindset is on, and it should be usher. So the shaylo really boils down to: is it tali in you? Is it tali in Reva Olam? Is it tali in what's going on over here? So, what do we all think? Anyone has a? For us, it's not edible. For us, it's not edible. Sounds like Diane Fisher is eating those bones.
There are certain bones that get softer when you cook them for longer, but marrows won't get softer.
So, what type of buck or bone is edible?
It's like flanking at the end of the bone gets softer.
Saying he's having these fancy flanken bones. No, chicken bones, I understand. Okay, I don't know. I'm not weighing in. I have no clue. I understand what you're saying, but of course you will. No, because slow, because calms. What's I'm saying? Calms along Ramosha, and Ramosha in our Chaim Chilital Simnayin Zayin and Simnayin Vav. He says it's totally in where you are. Says Ladina de Bishul Shabbos im Eichos Atzamos Rachim and Acholom Listam Inshi. People eat it. Achar Bishul Arbe called the Bishul Acholin. Yishvadi Lesser Lachsal Atana Beser but Par Deraisa. But he says Avol. However, if it's She'ilu Atzamos Arachin Asoichtin Sheichlin Harbi Inshi Ein Tzach Yeser Bishul Vishul Toiv Dabasa Ilu Atzamos Lom Zashul Bishul. Then he continues. But if the vart is that you don't eat them, Elarak Miot Koton. Shaykh Bazeh Botloi Daitam Af Im Nechshav Bate Hatavshel Shel Hamoistais Beretz Yisrael La Asra Kahal. He says it's totally on the place. Avol Bim Eretz Yisrael Yodua Daichlan Isan Ruba Inchi Oz Yish Lesar. So Ramesha basically says, which is what the Ilam here is pointing out, is that if we're not eating the bone and we don't even understand what bone they're eating and we're handling if our bones could be eaten, then for sure.
What I'm saying is that even in a place where they would say that it's usser, because people there eat the bones, if you're putting the bones that we put in, it would be mutter.
Okay, that I can't weigh in because I don't know. You have to ask them. I don't even eat those bones, so I don't understand the. But yeah, I owe that. Sheva Levi says, well, it's telling each person, which is also stam a nice thing. He says mutar lachzir gabi eish rak mi she'ein darka lechel esazamos. But if you're darka lechel esazamos, ein lachzir b'chashash esabishul. So yes, that's where it goes. Yes. Oh. Yeah.
The guy that puts it in to make it on the kiddush before Shabbos.
Yeah, then you have a problem. Of course, it's not cooked. That's why you can't do Chazarah.
No, I'm saying first
Yeah.
When the other end of this crop was not measured yet, and then he puts in the bone. I'm saying if you have a slaughter that the bone no one cares about, so
Yeah. So again, I don't know if it's a vart chashiv enough. You're saying lefi the mekilim. You're asking fi Diane Fisher. I hear you're saying he doesn't care. Again, but I don't know. I don't know. Yishladen. I don't know. But no, I thought you were saying he's back to your potatoes. I thought you were saying back to your potatoes is that if you're now really this is the end of the text, and now there's really one fundamental issue that we all have is what do you do with the fact you eat your shal on Friday afternoon, you eat your shal on Friday night, you eat your shal on Shabbos day. Yeah, Friday afternoon, and let's just go with the case. I'm not talking about a case that Friday afternoon, you put up Thursday afternoon, and therefore Friday afternoon it's mamish fully cooked 1,000,000%. No, talk about a case that Friday afternoon, yeah, maybe some of the beans are a job hard, and Friday night, maybe some of the potatoes are a job hard, and Shabbos day, it's whatever. But we just l'chayra, if you eat it that way, if you we're talking about a person who's eating the challah, and every Friday when he eats it, there's a few bones, few beans that are a little hard. And what do? You eat them. You don't sit there and, oh, this is pashut raw. So that means that's called, again, I'm just saying a svara. You don't have to listen to it, and I don't know what else to say. There's a chayr, that's called mevushkal tarka. That's the way you eat it, and you eat the challah on Friday night. Now, but there is a level that you'll take it, and the potato will be hard, and you'll be like, I'm not touching that potato, the potato's raw. That's the level that you can't do chazar anymore, and that's what you really have to be mindful of. Now, obviously, it has to do with how big are the potatoes and how much you cut them up, and I don't believe there's a concept of Raif. The only concept that we have, which is what Yedidia is pointing out, is from this Dayan Fisher, which he says he never heard of anyone being chayshish that the bones are not cooked. He clearly is saying that even if there might be one or two of the bones that are not so soft, you don't have to worry about it. So maybe there is some level of a svara, but no, aside for that, again, maybe you could say that to the fact that you don't have to be OCD, that there may be ulay efsher, but if you know that it's not cooked, l'chayra, it is a problem. Let's move on to Sif Gimel. There's one more piece of raid which I'm not talking about, which is what is our crackpots? Do they have a din of a kupach? Do they have a din of a teichai? What are the dinim? Whatever. It's a way to machlekes, and we all know about the mekilim, and we all know that there are some zalmins that were machmir, and some people are dreaming of dying with a crackpot next to their bed as they hear some zalmin. But weiter. Sif Gimel. Really, the ikr of Sif Gimel we're going to have to come back to as we started off with, which is the contrast of Gimel and A. Yeah. No, there's nothing to do with aligning them. There's nothing to do with aligning them. It has to do with the fact of is it something that's going to be, you just can't use a crackpot. Now, how are you going to get out of the fact if it has din of a kupach? So maybe, no, some would say you have to buy the other company. That would be nafkamina, the flat ones, because then it's not inside of it. That would be one nafkamina. Or maybe someone would say that if you raise it up, maybe you'll get out of that shayla. I'm not, we will come back to that. I'll tell you, because you can't, if we do this now, we're going to don this 17 times. Because each level, is it atmana, is it this, is that? We'll have to do crackpots one day and just deal with all the shaylas that come up. But let's discuss Sif Gimel, the blech, which is really Sif Gimel. As the Mechaber in Sif Gimel says, you wake up in the morning, you see that your pot is burning, you're worried it's going to burn more. What does the Mechaber say you do? You take it off, put another pot on the oven, and then put the pot of food back on it. Which, yeah, sorry. So why, you see it from the Sif base. So, yeah, but I don't think this is going to be this won't be any more telling than that. So really, this is where the Chazon Ish becomes required reading. Chazon Ish is in Simin Lamed Zayin. Be'ikr Sifkat Tes. Be'ikr Sifkat Tes in Lamed Zayin. And over there, the Chazon Ish comes to explain, because anyone who learns Sif Gimel says, this is a blech. You have a flame that now is covered with a pot. You have a blech. So it's glad to have a blech. The Chazon Ish comes along, and the Chazon Ish explains Sif Gimel as why there's a heter over here, and thereby comes along and says, but a blech would not work. And this is why in Bnei Brak, there is no such concept of our blechs. Because, according to the Chazon Ish, our blechs do not work. And then it's good. So let's go slowly. So the Chazon Ish says, you know why it works over here? He says the lumdis in Sif Gimel is a din of samuch leish. That's what he says. It's a din of samuch leish. Chazon Ish himself says, and others quote the Chazon Ish and the Shevet HaLevi, and we'll get to the Chut Shani in a moment, and Archas Rabbeinu, v'chulu, that the reason why our blechs do not work is because, one second. He says v'dafka. I don't. Again, I'm trying. I don't know if this is actually the lashon of the Chazon Ish or lashon of Sheva Levi. We have to look at the Chazon Ish. V'dafka shemafsik avir kediru reikanis. Then choshev hafsik. Tizeh shinoi sheminkar tfei umimayir achoim miot minkar tfei. The hefsek tas barzel, which is our blacks, dock that are thin, loy odev mikisi akira, v'gara mimenu, and it's not going to work. So the Chazon Ish seemingly has two issues over here. Issue number one is that it's not minkar, it's not recognizable. Issue number two is that it's not lowering the heat. And that's the reason why the Chachani comes along and he says, let's understand what are the problems according to the Chazon Ish. Chachani is in Perach Chavav Har Lamrei. He says, according to the Chazon Ish, lo mahani hefsek pach shal mateches lo mavi gufa ktuma is why because you cover the flame to aid in the cooking. And he points out, don't make a mistake. Don't think, because Bizman Chazon Ish, they had primitive cooking, which they did, of course, and therefore the only way to cook was to put on a big metal sheet. So, but nowadays that we don't cook that way, it'll be okay. No. Don't think that's even the Bizman Chazon Ish, they didn't do this. Because Makam Echshiva Chazon Ish ledarkoi bekach mishom shedarkoi lishamish letoy eles pizur achoim. The putting on the blech, it spreads the heat. L'shetach yiser gadol. K'sheina roitz lahavir ishem arbe. You don't want to put on a lot of flames, so it works out gavaldik. You cover it over, and it spreads the heat. And therefore, zok the Chazon Ish, an entity that's spreading the heat, is not going to be able to come and be calling that an entity which is diminishing the heat. Gar v'katam, it just can't be. Ubeshav is nisch lazeh ki v'shen yachalik wazish. And therefore, what's the takeaway? Yeah, I mean, right, in Lumbus, it's like, it's glotz, right? Especially, I mean, well, we could further his point, is in the world of griddles, go work into the back of the kitchen over here, how do they cook? They're not allowed to have gas back here. They're not allowed to have exposed flames. So what do they have? They just have a massive griddle. Yeah. Again, it's not a varnish coil through the entire thing or not. No. Again, of course, there's not a scientific machlekes here. Slow. There's not a scientific machlekes. The Chachani understood of Vada that as you spread the heat, there's going to be a level of diminishing. No one's arguing on that. The Chachani himself is about to give another eitzah, as well as an Archas Rabbeinu. They come along and they say it has to be, or the Lashon Chazon Ish himself has to be a shinoi that's minkar tfei. Has to be something that's noticeable, which is the reason why when you have an airspace, then it's going to be noticeable. That's the nikuda that he's honing in on. And avada, if you go right on top of the flame, of course. But again, I'm just pointing out, of course, I agree with you that a griddle has coils everywhere. I'm just pointing out that it's the most normal thing to have a large flat cooking thing on top of multiple flames, and then there'll be heat everywhere, and it will allow me to cook more.
Even though it's not as hot, it's like convenient. So that's
yes. That's the lashon of the Chazon Ish.
Not that it's not diminishing the heat.
It's both. The lashon of Chazon Ish is you need to have mafsik avir kedei kanis. Then it's shinoi sheminkar tfei umimayir hachoim miot minkar tfei. Meaning, avada, you take a thermostat and you want to go and you want to measure, and let's give you a mashal that we all can understand. We spoke about it whether aluminum foil could be a gar v'katim. And we said how some of the Gedolim wanted to say that you have like this thin foil, which is mamish nothing, that's not going to work. They said, but you put a bunch of layers, then it's going to work. So over there, in that camp, which is not the Chazon Ish, they're learning what level of diminishing the heat do you need. Epis. Anything. It's going from 325 to 324. But the vart is, you're doing something to diminish the heat. Chazon Ish is clearly learning a totally different lumos. And that's where the Chazon Ish comes along over here, and he's learning that in the case of the Shulchan Aruch, that you put a big pot there, and then you put the thing on top of it, that's going to be a diminishing, which is miyot minkar tfei. That's going to be, what's the number is hard to give, but maybe we could say, just to give gross numbers, that on top of a flame, it's 350. And this is going to be 320. it's going to be a recognizable difference. And therefore, says the Chazon Ish, taking a blach over the whole thing, that's not a recognizable difference, it's not going to work. Now, of course, there will be areas that it will be recognizable. And in the last 2 minutes, when we'll have the time, we're going to talk about there'll be even areas on your blach that are quote unquote not even Yatzaledis boy. But the Chazon Ish is looking in a global look that on top of your flame, covering it, this is not something in our terminology that we'll say which is removing you from the cooking process. So the Chachani is a chiddush, and he says, well, if he's that, you know what you could do? Im yasim pach kotam me'oid. You put a very small cover al gabi ha'esh, shechases ish ba'atzmai, u'mimayir ha'choim kach, and it doesn't spread the heat. And it's abnormal. Have a hecker gadol. And that's not a normal way to cook. It doesn't exist, but it sounds like it's you take a small pot right over the flame.
Put out the flame.
No, then that's it. And then on top of that pot. Oh, again. I'm not saying this is user friendly, and this is why in Bnei Brak these things don't exist. But yes.
If you would put a block on top of that, would it be hot?
Yeah, but that's it. You could build some, put 4 pots on top of your 4 burners. Make sure there's some oxygen in, or it's going to put it out, as Rabbi Katzin just pointed out. And then put a big blech on top of it, and eventually it'll be hot-ish. It might not be 500 degrees. Yeah, well, that's what we're doing. We're doing Hafsek Kedera. Not doing Grace Chap. The Chazon Ish holds you need Hafsek Kedera for Chazarah. No, we're saying instead of doing covering the whole thing, if you cover just the flame, it would work. Basically. Of course, yeah. How else? If you put the blach right on the thing, it's no. If you put no, that's not called space. If you put the blach right on a fire, you're not going to fire. It's not possible. Right. And the fire goes up to the grate. When we talk about koshering, we talk about koshering. We always point out if you put all your things in high, you will not have a blach anymore. The whole thing will break. But over time, that's the Chazon Ish. Lamaisa are not our paising. Our paising. But correct. Even they ask Chaim Yatsky, what if you put multiple blachs on top of each other? Afilu miniyah kama pachim. He says it's all called one kisoy, and that's it. Okay, weiter. For the Chazon Ish? I don't think so. Because the same person has a blach on his oven, so it makes no sense. So, Lamaisa, the Gedolei Paiskim from the Shmir Shabbos, the Sheva Levi, Ramosha, V'chulu, all say that we use a blach on Shabbos. We're going to conclude with, and some learn the Chazon Ish, and understand the Shita. I'm not saying we're going to necessarily pass in that way, but learn the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish. Oh, are we ever going to be chayish with the Chazon Ish? No, not really. I don't know of such a thing. Let's conclude with those who use blachs, which apparently there are people that still do. Let's conclude with the 3 areas on a blach. 3 areas on a blach, and let's figure out what's going on over here. We have Eish. Then we have area right on top of the Eish. Then we have the area which is Yatzer Ledis Bite, which is going to be a sizable area around the Eish. And then you have the surrounding areas which are not even Yatzer Ledis Bite. Okay? 3 areas on your blach. What's the shaila? And again, those who use blachs, I think this is very common, is that you keep on one burner. And let's say you keep your soup on top of that, because that's the first thing you're going to eat. And then you have the rest of the food, like the food that you want hotter, closer to it and further away. But then after you remove the soup, now the food that's the furthest away is not so hot. So you want to go and you want to move that on top of the Eish. Again, on top of the Eish, on top of a blach. Is that allowed? Are you allowed to move things from area 3 to 2, area 2 to 1? That's the shayla. So from area 2 to 1, that we for sure have a Ramosha. That's Mako. I don't know what you mean by a Ramah. No, those are each one is Kira al Gabi Aish. Shayla here is Lava Gabi Aish. So is that the same case? Lower to bigger is both Aish though. Again, so you need, I'm not arguing with you. That is what Ramosha is coming to explain. If you need or you don't need. I mean, the Ar Machmirim, which I tell you. So, yeah. The Ar Letzion, Rabbi Tzion Abba Shaul says, Ein, I was wondering if that's why, but I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think this point is a contested point. Ein lahavir sasir mi makom she'ein eish tachtov makom she'eish tachtov. Elam kina yisir b'chliz shabbos yidachas. Let's sit on top of the flame. There's a chutshani also that seemingly is machmir. Lamaisa, where things get interesting, and with this will end, is what about moving from area 3 to area 2? Again, and if you have a big blech, this could be like a big deal. Because area 3, it could be almost cold. You can put your hand on there. And then you want to move to area 2, which is Yatza Ledis Boy. What's the sadia? So they asked Ramosha, what? Oh, so you're all discussing what's the status of the food. That's also going to be a good shadow. But let's go one thing at a time. So they asked Ramosha, Al Gabe, and I'll read you a tshuva courtesy of Rabbi Davis. Thank you. This is from Rav Shimon Eider. I think it was subsequently published in Chelik Daled Siman Ayin Daled Bishul Oisid Beis. I think. The reason why it's a problem is because it's a direct steer to different Ramosha, and this is where things get juicy. Apparently, one of the Einaklach asked Zaidi what's going on. It's a stira, and Zaidi weighed in on which one he felt was more muskim. Because none of them are written by him, right? Or this also not written by Ramosha. So the shayla was, Al Gabi Tanurim Didana Mechusim Beblech. Davar Ambush called Sarkai. Shahaya Allah Blech Mavakim Yatzeledis by. Okay, area 2. Vein Al Gabi Eish, Himotelach Zero Makum Al Blech Shal Gabi Eish. Move it to area 1. Question number 1. Question number 2. V'chein Davar Shahaya Al Blech Mavakim She'ena Yatzeledis by. And then the clincher, he then continues and says, Can you pull a two-step move over here? 3 to 2 to 1. Says Ramosha Tshuva. And this is in a direct steer to another Tshuva Ramosha. In the other Tshuva Ramosha, he says, absolutely not. The other Tshuva Ramosha in Beis Samach Aleph, in Dalit Samach Aleph, he says, even if it's not al Eish Mamish, Yochlach Ziroi, the Chozman Shapach Cham Machmas Eish, Shayeches Laish, Yochlach Ziroi Laish. So that's area 2 to area 1. It's hot from the Eish. Here, says Ramosha, in that other tshuva, no. The other tshuva, he just says 2 to 1 is okay. In this tshuva, they asked him, what about 3 to 2 and then 2 to 1? Ramosha says, tshuva, Mikivan shehu ala blech, she'ala tanur, loy nechshav chazarah. Ve'im hu adayin cham, shalek din bishel achar bishel, avada, very good, which we always have to be mindful of the fact that, of course, if it's not hot, you can have a bishel problem. Mutter la'amidoy gam al gabe makom shal gabe ha'esh. Moshe goes to the gold, and he says,
that has to be
3 to 2 to 1. That was the shayla. That was the again. One is the food, and one is the thing. You have to always be mindful of the food. If you have a soup, and the soup is not yat saledis by, then it's game over. If I have a saucy food and it's not yat saledis by, it's game over. But now, first of all, what if it is a dry item, so you don't have to be concerned about that, which will be a classical kugel. I have a kugel. And before Shabbos, I'll tell you a crazy case. As I walk out the shul, I take a kugel from my fridge, freezing cold, maybe my freezer, and I put it on the edge of the blech, on the part of the blech that's warm. And then I eat my soup, and after I eat my soup, gewaldik. I take this warm kugel and I put it directly al gabe the blech al gabe aish. No hefsekadir. If you have hefsekadir, of course it's mutter. But I put it directly al gabe aish. And now it's going to get boiling hot, of course. Ramesh says it's mutter. On liquids. There's 2 different sigas. One is the sig of bishul. You always have to be mindful of bishul. Ein bishul achar bishul. You have to be mindful of bishul. So we didn't learn that sugi yet, so let's just be careful. I'm giving you a case that doesn't have a bishul problem. Not Chazarah. Chazarah, you need to know him. He's saying this is going to be mutter. I could go from area 3 to area 2 to area 1. I can take the kugel and I can move it all the way on top of gabi blech.
What is it?
It's when it's sitting ala blech. That's called. It's called it's ala ha'ish. It's called it's ala ish. And now you can do chazara. Yeah, it's called chazara. Again. It's mutter though. Yeah, okay. I didn't understand what you're saying. Oh, it has. What do you mean without tanoi chazara? It's inherently tanoi chazara. The fact that it's sitting there. Again, you're all saying the same thing. Yeah. 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 Again, you're arguing semantics, but the answer is Ramesh's Mekel. Lamaisa, the art school book quotes him as being machmir from the first tshuva. He says food that was left in area 3, the edge of the blech, may not be moved into area of area 2 on Shabbos. He can go to other tshuva Ramesha. And I think that's the mikubal. I don't think the mikubal is to go from 3 all the way to 1. But that is that. I'm just going to end. I'm sorry? No, everyone agrees from 2 to 1 you could do. Everyone agrees. No, because he said the only reason why you're allowed to do 2 to 1 is because 2 is hot from 1. And therefore, the pashtus is, and if it's not hot from 1, which is area 3, you can't do it. And that's what the art school book writes. And that's, I think, what most people do. Lamaisa, there is this other tshuva. In Meseres Moshe, they asked Moshe which is more Mekubal, and he tainted that this one is. But again, yeah, that's what he tainted. But again, this is all grandson. This is Chanukah Mesiba Hak. I just want to end with one last thing, is that we spoke last week that if you pull the food out of the oven and it's on the rack, and we mentioned that it may be l'chayr that's similar to if you take your pot and it's partially al, and the Olam was very upset. I mean, Simcha Bunim felt even bold enough to publish this in English. If a pot is near the entrance of an oven which is on, it is permitted to remove some food from that pot by pulling out the oven rack. After removing the food from the pot and closing the lid, one may push the rack back into the oven and close the oven door.
But that might not be because it's partially.
I have nothing else to add. He quotes and nothing else to add, and we're done.